Do you know what this place is?
Your mother, Angela, she's our patient.
I've been out of touch with her for a very long time.
Oh my God.
Her mind is very active in the simulation.
Simulation.
She went on a homicidal rampage. This is your chance to ask her why.
Mom?
Carly, you have to go. You have to go.
Guys, please let me out! Can you hear me? Guys!
What are we doing?
No. Just wait.
Are you sure that you haven't been having any hallucinations outside of the simulation? Demonic possession. It could be real.
I can't do this.
You won't end up like your mother. The Vatican has been funding a black ops unit. Using priests like soldiers.
Now that it's free, it won't stop coming for you.
Stop right there.
Writer-director of the new high-tech supernatural thriller Demonic, on digital download from September 15 and DVD Blu-ray from 22nd of September. Mr. Neill Blomkamp, welcome to Screen Watching, mate.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Given that you love the tech elements of your film, I'm interested to know which came first to you, the premise that demonic possession can be as much of the mind as the soul, or the volumetric tech to deal with it?
It was kind of a combination of wanting to do a low-budget horror film, which put me in the realm of demonic possession, mixed with, once I decided I wanted to do that, I kind of lifted a few ideas off of the shelf that I previously had that I wanted to use in something, like volumetric capture as a technique, and then the idea of the Vatican acting like some kind of mega corporation with all of the capital that they have, buying up Silicon Valley tech companies. So it's sort of a blender of those components together. So it's an unusual film. It wasn't the traditional process of taking as long as you want to just come up with it, and then, once you have your final idea, executing it. It was like, we've got a gap in time. Let's reverse engineer how to make a film out of these ingredients.
Sure. Clearly, I'm a tech genius, but for those of us that don't know what volumetric tech is, can you give us the 25 words or less rundown?
Well, volumetric capture is basically three-dimensional video. So instead of filming from one point of view with your traditional camera, we use 250 4K digital cameras around the actors in a scaffold setup, and all of those cameras are crunched down into one three-dimensional geometric object of your actor. So it's almost like a video game character. You could look at them from any angle, but they would be doing the performance almost like a stage play. It's like capturing a stage play in 3D. And then later you can film it with virtual cameras in any way that you want.
Has that been used at length in other productions? Is this sort of groundbreaking stuff for you, which wouldn't be the first time, obviously? It
would be cool to find out where volumetric capture has been used in other films. I have a feeling that it's more like if you think of the holographic ads that you'd see in Blade Runner, right? Like large scale humans projected into cityscapes at night. That kind of application would be more like where you would see volumetric capture more recently. But I'm not actually aware of any movie that uses it in the forefront as actually driving the narrative forward. It would be awesome if someone could point me in the direction of where other examples are, because I could, share a beer with whoever made that, and we could talk about the endless like war wounds of volumetric capture and all of its downfalls. You
mentioned the world building, the big vast cityscapes that you bring to life in District 9 and Elysium, but Demonic is this internalized film. It's all memories and mindscapes, and I was reminded of films like Flatliners and What Dreams May Come. Were there any key design elements that you adhered to? Any inspirations in art or literature that you drew from for those?
Shit, what Dreams May Come is an interesting reference. I haven't heard that before. I need to watch that movie again.
That's a wonderful film, yeah.
And I haven't seen Flatliners in years also. But you know what's really strange about this movie? I mean, this movie is just like weird on all levels for me, right? This is not a normal process. So reverse engineering the movie out of elements that we had access to at the time, it puts it in this weird melting pot of ideas where the ideas don't come from outside of that melting pot. The references are not from outside of how the film was made. So it's very difficult to point to things that are actually references. I guess The Exorcist may be somewhat obvious, maybe, but in actuality, the performer, this is another example of the reverse engineering of all of these elements. The performer, Troy James, who does the whole like walking upside down thing, I saw him on America's Got Talent, and I thought he was like it was like the coolest thing I'd ever seen. So I wanted to use him in something at some point. And that's basically what ended up happening was okay, well, how do I write a sequence that would have this event happening? And so it's also not really The Exorcist. So it's not easy to point to stuff, but I'm totally going to watch What Dreams May Come now, because now I'm curious about that.
Yeah. I love that Carly enters the simulation not fully formed, that she encounters this dangerous other world, first as this lo-fi, sort of low-res version of herself, and then in her dream, in that great sequence with the demon coming to her house. She's not fully up for the fight until she's flesh and blood, and I think that's an important message as well.
Yeah, I mean, one of the themes for the whole movie was just the feeling that I just wanted her to be triumphant by the end of the film, that she comes out of it okay.
The lo-fi elements, I guess, also speak to the rather stark two-person operation that Therapool has afforded this groundbreaking tech. I guess in the real world with a bigger budget, this might have been a vast expanse of screens and technicians sitting around working this sort of thing. I'm sensing from the coverage that some of the reviewers don't get that there's a good fun line through this film. It's a real pulpy sort of fun monster movie as well.
Are we talking about reviews in general?
Sort of, yes, I guess. But I think I would almost say that your sort of history as being so serious about the tech and creating these worlds maybe is leading some coverage to suggest that it's not as much fun as I found it.
I mean, one of the things that is interesting, that is confusing about the film is that whenever I have discussions like this, it's rare, like it's more common that you can tell the journalists don't like the movie, right? If in fact they don't. What's weird about Demonic is the discussions are positive and then the reviews are hyper negative, which is fine. I mean, the reviews can be negative. The thing that's confusing though is the discussions pre-review. So at least come into it and be like, I don't really like it. Now let me ask you these questions. Yeah. So there's a split personality thing happening in terms of speaking to journalists about the movie, which is a bit odd. But yeah, I mean, other than that, it's like, if people don't like it, that's fine.
Yeah, I get it. I thought it was all right. I've seen it a couple of times now and had a ball with it. I think it's A terrific sort of story. Fill us in on the backstory of these demon-slaying soldiers of the church. I hope one day you get to serialize this their globe-trotting, gun-toting exorcism lifestyle.
Yeah, well, the remember how I was saying I pulled some ideas off the shelf? Like the original idea for that was this much bigger. The idea basically was, what if mass murderers in history were in fact demonically possessed? So if you had to take down Stalin, how would, from the Vatican's point of view, how would you do that? And so that just led to this weird black ops, like, you know, massively funded element of the Vatican that was almost influencing geopolitics in a way through exorcisms on you know, on a global scale. And that, I still like that idea. It's, I mean, and it, you know, this movie would be like a microscope zeroing in on one element of that idea.
You and your Oats Studio team are doing just so much inventive, exciting work. Is it meeting the goals you set for the you and the team back in 2017? Where do you see the next stage in its development heading?
Yeah, I mean, there is some pretty interesting stuff happening with Oats that could see it doing a lot more of what it was doing. So it's not for lack of creativity, or it's more just the finances of figuring out like how to in fact finance it and keep it separate from Hollywood. That's the thing. But I mean, it's each year that goes by, sort of the resolution increases on how that may be possible.
And I guess finally, mate, in broader terms, given how many times I read your name in the trades and all my sort of sci-fi forum feeds, I'm amazed that this is only your fourth feature. The internet and the fan base you have hangs on every sort of Neill Blomkamp development. How does that sit with you? Do you even know that's going on?
I think it's a result of just being connected to Alien for a while. And you know, that's kind of what I put it down to. So yeah, I mean, you know, I don't know what to say.
Well, I think you're underselling the impact that clearly you had with District 9 and to a certain extent with Elysium. These are films that are burnt into the fan base's psyche for going forward. So there, even all these years later, the cachet that comes from the creator of District 9 is pretty amazing. How do you sort of walk around with that jacket on?
I mean, you know, one of the things that's interesting is just trying to you have to, I mean, this film is a perfect example, right? Like, if you want to make a low budget film during the pandemic and experiment with horror ideas, like you shouldn't, if you listen to that stuff too much, you wouldn't end up doing something like this, right? So it's like, I like the idea of kind of just continuing to do what I want to do, and the results of that being the results of that, as opposed to, well, I need to control what I'm doing to fit this certain kind of narrative. So I you know, just kind of remaining true to what I feel like doing at the time is hopefully something I can continue doing.
I hope you do continue doing it, mate. I think you're an amazing talent, and thank you so much for the work to date, and especially for Demonic. Good luck with its release.
Thanks, man. Yeah,
All
I
right,
appreciate it.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, ciao.